No Time to Die. I've seen this movie 3 times. Here's my review of it. Full spoilers. Movie begins with our opening gun barrel. Fantastic. I think that's a first in Daniel Craig's Bond franchise. We open on a snowy white scene. And visually, it's fantastic. And the musical score is fantastic. It's Hans Zimmer. Come on now. And we have Cary Fukunaga. And we have Linus Sandgren, who did the cinematography for La La Land. So this is this is off the bat spectacular. Off to a great start. And then we see this figure with the white coat, the hood on, and with this girly-like looking mask. I don't know what kind of mask this is. But we saw this in the trailer. So this figure's walking towards the house. And inside the house, we see a young Madeline. So this is the story that she was telling Bond Inspector about some man coming to kill her father. We're getting that flashback in the opening scene of this movie. Madeline is talking to her mom. Her mom is a drunk, not paying attention to her daughter. The daughter tries to help the mom, so the daughter goes off to go do something, and then this figure frightens the young Madeline. Feels like a horror movie. The girl runs away. Figure comes into the house, talks to the drunk mom. Mom's so intoxicated, she doesn't know what's going on. In the subtitles here, he's saying, yeah, where's Mr. White? And if you know Mr. White, you know you've seen Casino Royale, because all these Daniel Craig Bond movies are connected. But she's like, yeah, I don't know where he is. And so he blows her away. He shoots her, kills her. And it's sad because it's in front of a young little girl. She witnesses her mom getting blown away. And then Madeline makes a noise. The figure goes to check it out. Madeline pulls out a gun, which was shocking to me. I'm like, okay. The girl shoots the man. And the man falls off of the banister and to the ground, and then a piece of his mask breaks off, and you see his face is all messed up underneath it. So the little girl drags the man outside, pulls him across the snow, and he wakes up. You see it in another trailer. He takes a big breath in, which is pretty cool for some reason. Then the figure comes up, and then the music is all ramped up, and it's Hans Zimmer. It's great. Music is awesome. Visuals are fantastic. And the girl, it seems a little cartoonish when the girl walks onto the ice. Maybe it's because it's CGI or something, or the way it's shot. I don't know. It looks cartoony at this point. It feels a little out of place. But she's running on the ice. The ice starts to crack. She falls through the ice. The figure, beautiful shot, walks up in center frame, and then the music is amped, and it's like, and you can't even see the eyes of Rami Malek here. I'm sure it's Safin, the character, but you can't even see his eyes, but you can see the mask, and then I felt like, okay, is he like, what is his emotions at this point? Because is he gonna shoot the girl and kill her? But then there's like, you can, just looking at the mask and the eyes of the mask, you can see like there is some sadness there or something, and with the way the music was being played and the way it looked great. I was just like, okay, what kind of emotions are being conveyed here? And I just felt like a sense of sadness. And then Rami Malek, the Safin character, is shooting at the ice. He's shooting around the girl, punches the ice, pulls the girl out, and a perfect smooth transition. We go into present day, where Madeline comes out of the water as she is being pulled out of the ice in her flashback. So that was great. It was a great transition. And visually, this is stunning. And Daniel Craig comes in, and he's like, you okay? She's like, I'm fine, let's go. And then it transitions into the next scene. Music is great. Visuals are still fantastic. And I'm intrigued here because now there's some mystery. They hooked me right at the beginning with, okay, there's this villain here. and he saved Madeline's life. Where is that gonna go? They didn't tell us everything here. There's a mystery. So we're kind of like in Bond's position. We don't know if there's a mystery about this woman. She's with the main villain of the film. Something happened there at that moment at the opening, and she's not telling Bond everything. So then they're driving, and this is when it feels like On Her Majesty's Secret Service, because they constantly use this line, and they use the song at the end. We have all the time in the world. And if you've seen On Her Majesty's Secret Service, you know that it's mostly a love story about Bond being obsessed with this woman, and they get married, she gets killed, and it's like very sad. So this movie, No Time to Die, is basically On Her Majesty's Secret Service in a way. At least it's how do I say it? It's paying homage to that movie. It's respecting that movie. It's mostly in tone with that movie. No Time to Die is mostly in tone with On Her Majesty's Secret Service, and it's bluntly obvious because they keep saying that line, we have all the time in the world, and that was in On Her Majesty's Secret Service, that line was. So we know that based off of that, this is mostly going to be like a sad movie, and it's mostly going to have more emotional layers to it, which is great. That's what the Daniel Craig movies have been so far. It's like, yeah, we're about the action, we're about the explosions and the fighting and all the gadgetry and the Bond stuff, but this is more about getting into Bond's emotional core. And I think they've done a pretty good job with that. Like Casino Royale's great. Skyfall got even deeper. That was great too. And so No Time to Die, he's with Madeline, he's retired, they're driving, and then they go to Italy at this location, at this hotel, and it's a beautiful scene because these fires are being lit and everything. And then there's this line where this butler says, oh yeah, this is what they're doing, they're forgetting the past, they're letting the past go and all this kind of stuff. And it makes me think two things. It makes me think that they're talking about letting go of the Bond franchise, because the trailers have been advertising this epic conclusion. What is it? I don't know. What's the epic conclusion that you've been teasing for so long? And then there's like letting the past go. So I'm like, oh, they're talking about letting go of the Bond franchise, letting what was go. And then in Bond's case, within the story, it's like, yeah, Vesper, he has to let her go. He's been through a lot. So yeah, it goes both ways, I feel. For the franchise and the movie itself, characters. So yeah, Madeline and Bond are making out, and it's beautiful. I feel the romance. It's great. It feels like a very stylish Young and the Restless episode. And so they're making out, and it's great. I feel the relationship. And they talk about Vesper, and, bringing that up again. And it's like Bond is like, oh, I let her go a long time ago. And she's like, I let go of the past. And then she's like, I'll tell you all my secrets if you can let go of Vesper. And he's like, okay. And so we skip to the next day. Bond, suited and booted, ready to go, gives Madeline a kiss, saying, okay, I'm going to go to Vesper, and then you're going to tell me what we're going to do next and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, all right. So then he goes, and music is great, visuals are great. Bond walks to Vesper's tombstone. He sees her, and he's like, I can't remember, what did he say? He said, damn. He said, I miss you, I think. And it's sad, and I think they play the Vesper theme in there, which is like, okay, yeah, you know that theme, because it's like Casino Royale, man. She got to Bond hard, even though he didn't know her very long. But, that's what he does. He's with Madeline, same thing. So he's like, I miss you, and then the piece of paper he wrote, forgive me, he lights it on fire, throws it on the ground, and then he picks up a Spectre card. And then you hear a timer, and then boom, this is when we kick off into the action scene, the major action set piece of this film. The explosion kicks everything off, and the only thing running through my mind is like, damn, two things. Either Bond should be dead, or he should look extremely fucked up. And so here's the thing. I know that in Bond movies, it's a Bond movie, it's an action thrill ride, and that's all you want. But it's like, I don't know, there's something off about this with the action scenes here. Like this opening action scene is exciting, but this explosion, I'm like, damn. I feel like I have to explain everything first before I can really explain what I mean here with the action. But so the explosion happens. And the thing I do appreciate about Daniel Craig's Bond, I don't know if the other Bond movies did this, but like in Casino Royale especially, each and every fight leaves a physical scar on Bond, on his face especially. So throughout the movie, he'll have all of these scars on his face. More so in Casino Royale, like, damn, man, you got jacked up. And it stays throughout the film, which I appreciate that. You know, because then it makes the fights and the action feel more realistic. When the facial scars stay on Daniel Craig's face. And in this, they stay there, but they're not as, like, noticeable sometimes. But, like, yeah, the explosion happens, and I'm just like, okay. And then, like, but the thing that's cool about that opening action scene with the explosion is because then we're, like, seeing it and we're feeling it from the perspective of Bond. Because then the audio turns down and, you know, he can't hear anything. But then he picks up his phone, which feels kind of odd to me. Like, the first thing he goes for is his phone. So, to me, he's, like, not really reacting to it that much, even though, like, we feel the sense of how he feels while he's in it, just with this audio effect. But it's just like he picks up his phone and he calls Madeline. I'm like, okay. Then he starts running. Music kicks in. And then the audio is still messed with here. And because the music, it's like, it's in there in sync with, like, how I guess we're as an audience, we're supposed to be basically just put in the perspective of him, like hearing what he's hearing. So he's running. And he runs up to this kid that took him to Vesper's tombstone. And Bond is like, all dazed and confused. And perfect acting from Daniel Craig. He's really acting dazed and confused. And then what kicks us out of this audio thing here is Bond gets shot in the shoulder. And this is the thing about the action. It's like, okay, so he doesn't even get shot in the shoulder. His suit gets grazed. And it's cool, though, because, like, the reaction of Craig when he turns around, and then, like, a quick cut to when Bond hides under this block, and then the car goes over the block. It's like, my adrenaline is pumping. And then the motorcycle comes in, and Bond's like, oh, shit, and he gets up, and then he's like, to the right, to the left, he's surrounded. Then this dude in the trailer, you see a dude pulls out this weapon, and he's blasting at him. I don't know what kind of weapon it is, but he's shooting at him rapidly. And Bond is he's just standing there. He's not even reacting to being shot at. He's just standing there. So this action just feels kind of odd to me. Because it's like, first the explosion where it's like, okay, he should, like, whatever. And then, you know, he gets shot on his suit. And then they're just shooting away at him, but they're missing. And then Bond, he's not even really reacting to it. He just makes a cool pose you see in the trailer, and then he leaps over the edge of the bridge, and then, you know, he does the stunt, and then he hits his back, and then he comes down, and he's like, oh, okay, winded. And then you see this guy with this weird eye, so I'm like, this movie's kind of all over the place now. This weird eye, okay, cool, we're focusing on that. And then we got Bond running again. Oh my god. We got Bond running again, and the motorcycle man with messed up eye, Cyclops, comes in, and Bond, you know, tackles him, does a clothesline. And Bond fights the guy, and then the guy with the eye, call him Cyclops. Cyclops is like, they even credit him as Cyclops at the end of the movie. And they even call him Cyclops in this. Cyclops, he's like, Madeline's the daughter of Spectre. And he keeps saying that, and then, you know, that puts the thought in Bond's mind, like, oh shit, Madeline's double-crossed me. She led me here. So then he knocks out the guy, dude's eye falls out, and it's just like, why are we focusing on this eye? So I'm thinking, okay, these people are trying to kill you. You know they work for Spectre. You're out of service. But you would at least take the eye as like, man, I want to know, like, how did they find me? Like, can this eye lead me to some? Can I, like, is there a tracker on it to where Bond would use the eye later to, like, get the one up on them or something? But no, he just leaves the eye there, looks at it, and I'm like, okay. Grabs the bike, and it's like he's riding the bike, and it's like visually it's cool and the music is great, but it's just, I don't know, it just feels kind of dull. I'm sorry, but it's like he's riding the bike, but it's visually cool. He's riding the bike and he leaps, and you see it in the trailer, and then he's like all cool, macho, dropping the bike on the ground, just strutting across. And then it's odd because then the butler guy comes in again. He's got this big smile on his face. He's like, your bags are downstairs, Mr. Bond. And then it's like, okay. And then Bond gives him this mean mug look, like, all right. And then he goes to see Madeline, and the trailer, Bond, and I love it because Bond's all messed up here. He's dirt on his face, you know. But if I were to make a movie like this, bro, especially with what happens at the end, I would have been like, bro, let's just go for the gusto here, bro. Let's just tear Bond up, make him looking like zombie. What's that? Zombie Jason by the end of this movie. Like, just wreck him, bro. Like, put so many prosthetics on his face that Daniel Craig looks like a Bond villain by the end of the film. That's what I would have done. But it's like, he's looking all messed up. And in the trailer, he says the past isn't dead. But in the movie, he says, what does he say? He says, yeah, letting go is hard. Which oh man, I was looking for the past isn't dead. That was a better line, I think. But he says, yeah, letting go is hard. And then, I don't really like the dialogue in this movie so far. But, you know, my adrenaline's pumping, I'm into it, and then there's like paranoia going on because then the phone is ringing and the music is great, and then Bond is standing there, and then he grabs Madeline, he's like, how did they know I was here? And he sounds like Sean Connery a little bit. He's like, oh, it's great. And then he just throws her on the bed, and then it's like, you know, phone's ringing, and then this is fantastic. It's great. My adrenaline's pumping at that point. So then he grabs Madeline, he's like, we're leaving, and they get in the car, and it's the classic, what do they call it, DB5? I don't know cars that well, but it's the classic Bond car from the Sean Connery days that they always show in the Daniel Craig movies. And it makes sense that it's here because he rode off into the sunset with Madeline with that car. So it makes sense that it's here. And so he's in the car, and then like he's using the gadgets. And it makes sense because it's like, I mean, he's Bond, man. I'm sure he would be taking some precautions in case, you know, shit backfired and he had to like escape right away because the windows are bulletproof. So it's like he's using the gadgets. It's fun. It's action. Great. And what happened? So then, you know, he's talking to Madeline and he doesn't trust her now. And she's like, why would I betray you? All this stuff. And then she's talking to Bond and then they get hit on the passenger side. Then there's a nice shot. You see some bells ringing and then they're shooting at the glass and then Bond is just sitting there. And they're shooting at the glass, and she's like, Bond, say something. He's like, okay, and then he's like blasting away at everybody. It's fun. Smoke screen goes off, and then what happens? Smoke screen goes off, and then he drives away, and then cool action visuals coming in, spinning the car around and parking it, and then he grabs Madeline to the train and he's like, this is it, and she's like, this is it, and then they part ways, and it's a bit, we know what we're in for here from the very opening. We know what we're in for here, something with more emotional layers to it. But then I feel some of those things could be a little corny because when Madeline's on the train, she's like crying, and then Bond's looking at her and he's all dramatic, like, you'll never see me again. But I feel it though, but then I really wish they had spent more time with him though. Because I don't think Spectre did the relationship justice. This movie, to a point. But it's like, bro, and then maybe it's the dialogue or something, but I don't know. It just feels like some very expensive Young and the Restless episode where he's like, you'll never see me again. And then all dramatic, she's like, the train is moving, and Bond's just standing there all bitter, and then she's like running, trying to see him for the last time, and he just turns his back and he's gone. And then Billie Eilish's No Time to Die song kicks in, which is great. And it's in perfect sequence with that after this heartbreaking scene. And I feel it, but then at the same time, it's like it's a little corny. But then maybe it's because it's like this kind of romantic stuff feels corny to me. But then I do like some romantic movies, you know. But this, I don't know. It just feels, there's something a little odd about it. But I feel the emotional weight of it, you know, after witnessing everything that just happened. So it's good sequence of events here, even though I feel a little odd about it. So we kick into our opening credits here, classic Bond, and I honestly have to say that Casino Royale was great. Quantum, I don't know, sometimes I feel like these opening title credits are just uninspired. Because they just can't, like they constantly show like Bond's face and like, you know, like it's the same objects. You know, just done in a different way. Like there's a barrel of guns and the bullets come out and it looks like DNA, a DNA strand, which doesn't, I don't know. But it's like, yeah, it's impressive because I love the song and the visuals, they're great, but it just kind of feels uninspired. But whatever, What do I know? I can't make no shit like that. So kudos to whoever created that. But that's just how I felt when I was looking at it. And so opening credits are great. And after that, what happens? Okay, so we kick ahead 5 years later. Good visual shot, nice color of the I don't know if it's probably it's probably not sunrise, but this shot of the sun going down. You see nice colors coming out of the background there, and then the figures are going down the side of the building, and then we have the shot where the camera is upside down, and then it goes right back up, and it's visually cool and impressive. But then it kind of strained my eye because I was like, why are you? What is the point of that? But it's cool. It's a cool visual shot. And then the villains come in and it looks like Splinter Cell. They're coming in and they're shooting people. The violence, when people get shot, I feel it though. When people get shot, is intense. It's very intense when people get shot in here, because they don't. It's close to like a rated R when people get shot. I feel it, and then like in a theater, you hear that boom, that pop, and it's like holy shit. Like you feel people getting killed in here, and especially getting shot in the face. And so it's like it gets odd in the story because then there's the scientist, and I feel like, since we have the writers here from that Pierce Brosnan's last Bond movie, Die Another Day, I feel like those two guys they wrote this part because it seems like it's just really goofy and out of place. But that's what some Bond movies have, that the goofy stuff happening, and weird looking villains. And so it's like the scientist guys here, and there's this moment where he's arguing with his two comrades because they mess with his food and put smallpox on it, and he's like, his accent with what he's saying and how angry he seems, this guy's a good actor, because like it's a funny moment. The way he's like, yeah, I put something in your something, and then like I will be laugh, it's funny. And so then Safin calls him, our villain returns, and he's like, oh yeah, the people are coming and you need to swallow this thing. And so he swallows it, and then I'm even saying to myself, like, bro, you're in a quiet room. I'm sure they can hear you talking about all this stuff. But then they acknowledge it in the movie, and he's like, oh yeah, I love animals. And this is really odd. And like, whatever. And then he hangs up the phone, lights turn off, villains come out, they grab hostages and the scientist guy who swallowed this thing, and they're like, yeah, take us to the Hercules. And he's like, all right. And he's like, I need someone else. And he grabs this other guy, and they go to get the Hercules, and they pull it out and they put it in a case, and then they shoot the guy in the face. Not the scientist guy who swallowed the thing. They shoot this other guy who they needed his credentials or something to get the Hercules thing. So they kill the guy, and even the scientist feels it because he makes a reaction at the guy getting shot in the face. And then this really cool moment, which I'm surprised they didn't use more of this, because this made me take the villain seriously. Like, I even heard someone in the theater say, holy shit, at this moment, where when they went in the elevator shaft and they dropped this big bomb, and you see half of it in the trailer, they drop this bomb, and these pieces come off the side, and they attach to the walls, and the lights are red, and then the bomb goes through the floor, knocking the bottom floor out so they can drop down there. And then they have their little Splinter Cell suits on, and they all light up, and then they throw the scientist guy down there. And then as he's dropping, he's panicking, and I feel his panic. I'm like, holy shit, I'm feeling this moment. It's intense. He goes to the section where the little magnetic things are on the wall, and they turn green, and they stop him, like right in his, as soon as he's falling, they stop him. And that was really cool, and even the scientist guy acknowledges that, which is cool. I'm surprised they didn't utilize more of that gadgetry in the movie. It's amazing how you can give us this one cool action sequence and not have more of that. But whatever. So it's like really cool, and then they blow the floor that they were on, they blow it up, and then we transition. Where do we go from there? Let me think. We go to we go to M. Mallory, and he's in his office, and Moneypenny goes in there, and then they talk about the situation. He's like, oh, it's just a gas leak. And he's like, where's 007? And another nice transition after he says, where's 007? We see Daniel Craig's Bond on his boat living the tranquil lifestyle in Jamaica. And he's got his fish caught and he's still physically fit. And then he notices that there's some ash on his deck. So he goes to investigate, and then he sees a half-smoking cigar, or partially, well, the whole thing is pretty much gone. He sees a cigar, and it's like, okay, mystery. Someone's been in his house. Who was it? I don't know who it is. Bond doesn't know who it is. We're going to find out. And then we get to experience a little bit of Bond's tranquil lifestyle. I wish I had a life like that. I'd totally do that. He's in the shower, brushing his teeth, outside, naked, and he puts his toothbrush on his thing, cool, and then he's like drying off, and it's all in nature, bro. It's fantastic. And so he's drying off, and then, he has like secret shit, little Bond shit, pushing buttons, and had secret hiding places where he can put his gun. And what else happens? He gets in his Jeep, he starts driving, and then he encounters Naomi in a wig. And so he's eyeing her, and then we see Felix Leiter, who we saw in Casino Royale, Quantum of Solace. And I don't think he was in any other Bond movies. He wasn't in Skyfall, and he wasn't in Spectre. So he's back, and he looks like Max Payne from Max Payne 3. And so he shows up, and Bond catches wind of them. They all meet. They have their conversation at this club where there's a lot of music being played, and it's nice. We got our vibrant action. Well, not vibrant action. We got a vibrant scene where we see Felix and Bond, and they're reconnecting, which was fun, and I felt the emotional layers of that, especially, after seeing them in Casino Royale. Even though I don't really think they developed a relationship between these two, it makes sense because, this is Felix, and he's from Casino Royale, and then, they had their little relationship in Quantum of Solace, and then in this, it's like, okay, it makes sense as to they have that little relationship history there, but just like Madeline, it could have been, a bit more layered, but I accept it. It's a nice moment. They're in the club, music is playing, colors are great, and they're having fun, they're talking. And Felix gives Bond a mission. He talks to Bond about a job. He's like, okay, the scientist got captured, all this stuff we saw prior. And Bond's just like, no, basically, by the whole thing, by the end of it all. He's just like, no, I don't want to do it. And then he encounters Naomi again. I think her name's Naomi, I can't remember. But she's the new 007. That's what I'll call her. New 007 comes in, and, because Bond can't get in his Jeep. And she's like, you need a ride? And then she gives him a ride. And then they go back to his place. And then she's like, is that the bedroom? And then he makes this face where I was thinking, like, okay. Because earlier in the club, he tells Felix, I stopped trusting pretty faces a long time ago. So he's very bitter. Because it's happened to him twice. And so then he goes back to his place. She's like, is that the bedroom? And he makes his face where... I feel like I was thinking where he's like, yeah, what are you up to? Because he was eyeing her when he first left his house. And then he saw her again at the club. And now she just miraculously shows up to, like, rescue him. And so then it's like, in my mind, is thinking like Bond. I'm like, okay, so she's like, that's the bedroom. Okay. And he takes a sip of his drink and he, like, makes his face where it's like, what are you up to? And then, like, but then they play it off as like Bond really wanted to sleep with her, because then he turns on the light, she takes off her wig, and then he's like, well, that's not the first thing I thought you'd take off. So I don't know. I guess I read it wrong. But it's kind of odd, because then it's like, I didn't know what Bond was thinking, but we figure out, okay, maybe he wanted to sleep with her, and then he's like, I don't know. But we see what we saw in the trailer. Well, this scene makes no sense when I think about it. This scene makes no sense. Because it's like, okay, no, the new 007 shows up, and she shows up just to gloat. That's all she does, because she messes up her own mission. Mallory didn't even know where Bond was. He even admitted that. He's like, oh, we thought you were dead. You fell so far off the grid. But then new 007 finds him miraculously, and she shows up just to be like, hey, I know you're meeting Felix. Don't take that job. I'm going to put a bullet in your knee. Haha. Oh yeah, take my phone. Call Mallory. She even gives Bond her phone. Because then when Bond calls M, Bond is thinking, oh, 007, and then it's Bond, and then he's like, Mallory's like, you stay out of this. And it's like, what the fuck was she doing there then? She was there just to gloat. But then it's a good introduction for her character, though, too. But then it's like she fucked up her own mission, because we'll get to that. So she goes there to gloat and to introduce her as a movie to introduce her character. And then she screwed it up because, man, bro, now that I think about it, Bond turned down Felix. Bond didn't even want to take the mission. And the only reason Felix went, I didn't bring this up, the only reason Felix went to Bond is he said is because it's like, hey, if you were with Queen and Country, we wouldn't be having this conversation, basically. So he didn't say it like that, but that's what he kind of said. And so, but Bond was like, nah, I'm not doing it. He even says Nanomi, like, CIA, MI6, not trusting each other. Oh, it's not good, So there's kind of like some layers here, This is pretty cool. But now, no, what is she doing there? Mallory didn't even know what the hell she was. She's insubordinate, man. Like, cause Bond didn't want to do the mission. He didn't want to do the mission, and it wasn't until the new 007 showed up, all cocky, and she pushed his buttons. Then she had to throw that last jab in, like, I'm the new 007. I'm like, bro, I don't like her. She's like, oh, Bond didn't even want to do the mission until she showed up. It's crazy, bro. It's crazy. But, okay, so Bond is like, all right, I'm doing the mission now after, like Jesus Christ. So Bond's going to do the mission. He calls Mallory. And then this is kind of odd here because then Daniel Craig's like, Mallory, what did you do? And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I don't get it. Whatever. Now Mallory's involved for some reason. So now I'm thinking, oh, what is Mallory up to? Some mysteries going on here. So then Bond calls Felix and he's like, I'm in. And I'm like, oh, my adrenaline is pumping. We about to get started here. And then so he goes, he's like, I got a contact in Santiago I want you to meet or whatever. We saw it in the trailer. And this is one of the best scenes in the movie. Next to the opening action scene with Bond and the DB5 in the car. And we see, I don't know if I'm going to pronounce her name correctly. I'm terrible with names. Arma de Amas. We see her. And she's fantastic. I love her character. She's great in this whole movie. For this little one cameo she has. She's fantastic. She's all like really very quirky, sweet personality. It's very funny. She's like, I've had 3 weeks training. So you kind of want to roll your eyes at it, like, oh my god, I hope she doesn't get killed. Because if they kill her and she's this funny and fun, that's going to be sad as fuck. But like, we see her. She livens up this movie. Like, just as soon as we go to this moment here, she livens up this movie 1,000%. Like, just her performance. Her performance is amazing. Like, she livens up this whole entire moment of the film. And it's like, bro, great. Loving it. So Bond comes in, and then she's like all nervous, and then it's fun. There's a funny moment where Bond is like, is this your room? And she looks at him with this face like, it's a wine cellar. It's funny. And then she goes in there, Bond, and then she starts taking Bond's clothes off, and then you think, oh, is he gonna make out with her? And then Bond's even like, we should get to know each other first. And then she's like, oh, no. Here's, take this, saw it in the trailer, take this tuxedo. Okay, classic Bond puts his tux on, and it's kind of funny. He's like, it's like, I had 3 weeks training. And then they go to this party, and Bond's like, oh, let's get a drink. A lot of drinking going on in this movie. And so Bond's like, oh, let's get a drink. And so they go to Shaken, Not Stirred. We hear the line. And then it's like, oh, earpieces. They put the earpieces in. And then they have their drink. They're like, what should we toast to? To Felix. They toast. And he's like, Bond's like, remind me to get him a cigar. So they're building layers between Bond and Felix here, even though Felix is not in the movie very much. So they have to do this very quickly to build this, connection, even though there's not much here. But give them a cigar. I like that they put that in there. It adds more layers to the emotional weight and what's about to happen later. So then they drink, and then Armaday almost is funny. She's like sipping and sipping and sipping, and then she gulps and everything. It's very funny, very great in the scene. And then they go to a Spectre party, and it feels like I'm watching Eyes Wide Shut by Stanley Kubrick. It's very odd, very weird. It's kind of spooky, kind of like what happened in Spectre when Bond went to that meeting, and everyone is just very ominous and shit. But this one is just like everyone's just like partying and people like looking at Bond and craziness. Then the eye is there on this pillow, so it's really just odd stuff happening here. And it's basic stuff, you got the Bond classic, Bond Daniel Craig looking cool, walking through the shadows, walking through the lights and everything, with his piercing blue eyes. Got Armaday almost, and they're looking for the scientist. And the music's playing is great. Got classic stuff here, fancy, and then so lots of elegance here. And so they're walking, and then these villains are holding the pillow, and then you hear Blofeld, Christopher Waltz, over this intercom or this speaker, and he's like, "You're going to die, Bond," basically. And the smoke comes out, but before this we see the scientists, and they're doing something with the Hercules weapon. They're changing the DNA. But then the scientist guy, after putting the DNA thing on the USB or this drive, he drops it on the ground, and then he intentionally switches the drives out. He pulls the drive out of his sock and then takes the one he dropped on the floor and puts that under his shoe. And then, he puts it in the computer, and it changes the whole programming of it. So initially it was supposed to kill Bond, because you hear Blofeld over the speaker saying, "Hey, you're going to die now." But then you hear the scientists like, "Oh, only Spectre is dying." Because then when you see Spectre dying, they're all looking at Bond, and it's really creepy, and they back away. And then you see the Spectre symbol, and then the smoke comes out, and it's very great because it's eerie, and it's like, oh shit, it's very, very, very well set up here. I love this whole scene, this whole sequence, and so you hear Blofeld over the speaker saying, Only Bond will die. Only Bond will get hurt from this. Blofeld, I listened to it. Blofeld says it over the speaker. He's like, only Bond will die. Spectre, you won't be harmed. And then so all of Spectre dies, and even the scientist comes out and he's like, yeah, all of Spectre are dying, only Spectre. But then it's like dumb, because then it's like, okay, what's going on here? Because then you go back to the scene where the explosion happened at Vesper's grave. Are you people trying to kill Bond, or what's going on here? What? He's like, nothing. What do people call it? Like plot armor. Basically, I mean, it's Bond. You can't really hurt him. But then that's why I appreciate Skyfall, because at least he got shot in the shoulder. Then he got shot somewhere in the chest area and fell off of the bridge. He got jacked up in the opening scene of the movie. And throughout the whole movie, he has to recuperate, which is great. And and with this, it's just like, he can get in and out of any situation, and he doesn't get hurt. He got blown up. He got shot at. He's just standing there. Then this poison comes in, but it's like they won't kill him for some reason, even though Blofeld's like, Bond's going to die. And it's like, okay, maybe Safin wants to keep Bond alive. But for what reason? Mystery. Okay. Confused, but what's going on here? So then Spectre dies, Bond chases him, our big shootout scene happens, and I love Armaday almost. She's like holding the gun sideways, and you hear the burst of the weapon, and she's like looking real cool with the weapons, and she's kicking ass. She's like drop kicking people, and she has her heels on and kicking people with the heel and everything, and I felt that. The action in here is great, perfectly shot. You see everything, you get the geography of the whole scene. And then Bond, he's shooting people, blasting away. He falls off of a balcony and tackles a guy. And it's great. And then Naomi comes in this really goofy way. It feels like how Batman and Batman Forever dropped down from the ceiling. And then that classic line that extra had that everyone points out where he's like, Batman! Ah! That guy. And how Batman comes down from the ceiling. This is how Naomi comes out, because then it's like, just thinking it's an action movie. Don't think about it. But it's like, when I think about it, it's like, okay, so she would have had to time that perfectly, but then she would have had to set up all of that crap, all of the tech that she had to use to set all that up just to rappel down, grab the guy at the right moment, and then shoot back up, and then detach all of that shit. And especially with all that chaos happening, where how can you even navigate that? It's just really silly. It's just like, that's when I watch a movie and I'm just like, okay, the writing here of trying to figure out how we can just have Naomi come in there real quick, snatch him up, and get her out of there. It's a tough situation. You write yourself into a corner, I guess, because it just seemed kind of goofy and odd. Like, oh, I just dropped down from the glass, magic, and then boom, I grab him, and it's like, bro, realistically, to set all that up and just to do that, to navigate that, time that so perfectly, is bullshit. It is bullshit. But hey, it's an action movie. Don't think about it. It's fucking dumb fun. Just let it go. Fun. And I'm having fun with it. But that one moment just threw me off. You know? So she comes in, she grabs the scientist. And that's another thing. Naomi screwed up her own mission. But maybe she's all cocky, like, okay, I'll have Bond go in there and grab him. Maybe that was her plan all along. She's like, I have Bond and Armadale go in there and grab him. And then when they hit this precise mark, that's when I'll snatch him up. And they did all the heavy lifting for me. They did all the work, and I'll just snatch him up and take him. Be like, thank you for doing that part. But then she screws it up, because then Bond comes in and then sabotages what she's doing. Now she's trapped, and then they're in this big shootout. And it feels like a movie set. It doesn't feel... like, it feels so small. This set, this little piece of area that they're in, it's something about it just feels off. Like, it feels like this is like just a cheap movie set. But it's cool though, because the shooting, and then there's like this little thing that looks like a set, and then the villain, now new 007's, I'm taking you back to mommy, she says to the scientist. And he's like, no, and then he hops over this thing, and it's perfectly built and constructed for Armadale to get in the car and just drive straight into it. It feels like a cutscene from a video game, where she just drives straight and hits this thing, and it all collapses like dominoes. And then the villain scientist falls to the ground. Bond's like, I'm taking your plane, I'm taking the scientist, leaving new 007 there, and it's her own damn fault, because if she hadn't attempted Bond and been all cocky and that kind of telling, like, why did you do that? Because you sabotaged your own mission. If I was him, I would have been like, bro, you're being insubordinate. Like, that's so dumb. None of this would have happened if she hadn't attempted Bond. He turned Felix down until she showed up. Like, this is so stupid. But he steals her plane, and then Armadale almost says adios, and she was great. I wish there was more of her in this movie. And we get on the plane, and then they go to meet Felix, and then they have this intense conversation where Bond is like, I want to know what this Hercules is and what Mallory had to do with it. And then the scientist admits that, well, Mallory helped create it, but he doesn't have the brains for it and all that stuff. So now Mallory's implicated in this. And then this dude who smiles too much is telling Bond to shut up and telling the scientist to shut up. And then Felix, Jeffrey Wright, is like yelling at the guy, like, be quiet and stuff. And then Bond is like, who's orchestrating all of this, and how did they know I'd be at the party? And then the guy who smiles a lot is involved, and they shoot Felix. And then Bond and this guy who smiles a lot have a very intense fight. Like, there's a moment where you see the guy who smiles a lot, his face like hits a counter, and I could swear it moves by so fast. I swear it looked like his face actually hit the counter. So the fight scenes and the action, perfectly like choreographed and perfectly filmed. You feel it, you see everything. It's great. Sound effects are great, on point. And then Bond and the guy get in the fight, and then the scientist kicks the weird guy the gun, and then he's shooting at Bond, but he misses. Bulletproof, plot-proof, jumps through this door and lands, and then the guy locks the door, and then Bond and Felix have a moment. And it's touching. I felt it. I wish they had more development. I wish Felix I think Felix could have lived a little longer and then died later on just to add more weight to it. But it's like, more motivation for Bond. So it's like Felix gets killed, and I think they gave it enough time. They milked it a little bit here, which was great. Because it's usually the cliche where it's like they did it with Mathis and Quantum of Solace, where it's like, oh, a character that was in the previous movie comes back, but he comes back just to die, just to add more emotional weight to the film, when they should have developed him more to add a more impactful punch, I feel. I feel like you should spend more time with the character, so then when their death happens, it feels unexpected. Whereas with Felix, it's like, he's going to die. Felix is going to die just when you see the trailer. When you see the trailer, you're like, he's in this one scene. So Felix is going to die. As soon as you see him on, you're like, he's going to die. He's going to die. And then when he dies, it is kind of sad. Because then, like I said, the cigar thing, and then Bond brings it up. He's like, I got a cigar and you're going to smoke it. So that adds more layers to it, which was great. And then, this explosion happens, and then now the water comes in, and it's add more, Bond. And it adds more emotional weight to it, because I like that Bond tried to go back for him, and he's like, I'm not going to leave you behind, and he's trying to save him, and then Felix is like, what's that life like? And then Bond's like, I can't remember what he says, but he says something like, it's beautiful. And then, Felix is like, just let me go, and he lets him go, and it's kind of sad. I felt it. I felt it a little bit. And then so Felix floats away, and then Bond, he's struggling, he's gasping for air, finds a way out eventually, and then he's just sitting. It's kind of funny. He's sitting on a lifeboat. He's just sitting there on his lifeboat. I forgot what he was looking at. He was looking at something. But he's sitting on this lifeboat, and then you hear a ship come in, you hear the horn, and then that's a perfect transition into our next shot. And then through the shot, right in the foreground, when Bond, as you see in the trailer, Bond goes to get his car, and he's got his collar popped and everything, looking all cool. He got his blue jeans on. But when the transition happens, when you hear the ship horn, and then you see the shot gloss across the screen before all of the lights in the garage turn on, you see that dog. You see that dog that M had, where Bond said in Skyfall, where he looked at M after her office got blown up, and he says, everything in that office goes up in smoke and that bloody thing survives, or something like that. So we see the dog. There's nice little subtle things in here that they show from every previous Bond, not every Bond film, but some especially Daniel Craig Bond films. They show a lot of stuff in here. So you see that, and then you see the car, and then I did read something online where someone said that whole transition with the ship and the horn, and then him just being at his car, is a little odd. But then it's like, it makes perfect sense. It's kind of like it's kind of like when Bruce Wayne, like, people complain about Bruce Wayne in Dark Knight Rises when he gets out of the well, and he's far away from Gotham, and the bridges are destroyed, and there's a stranglehold on it. The fucking government can't even get in there. How does Bruce Wayne get in there? Doesn't make any sense. But he's Bruce Wayne. He has resources. He's smart. He's intelligent. He'll figure it out. And just doing that is its own movie. Watching him just go back to Gotham is like a own, like, spin-off. Just like with this. It's like with Bond. Okay, the ship comes in. Obviously, his lifeboat went to the ship. He must have either hid on the ship, or he made friends on the ship. He went on a little side mission away from the main story. And that's a whole other movie. And it's like, okay, I accept that. It's fine. He got on the ship and he went on his little shenanigans. We don't need to see that. That's its own thing. So he gets to his car. He gets in his car. Drives back to MI6, suited and booted. Goes in there. Meets new 007, who's cocky for some reason. I don't know why she's acting like this. Like, you sabotaged your own mission. But she goes, and they have this gripe about 007 and the number. And, Bond goes to talk to M, and it's a really good scene. And I just gotta say, it kind of reminds me of the scene between Nicholas Hoult and James McAvoy and X-Men Dark Phoenix. Because it's a similar thing. No one, Felix died. It's kind of a similar thing. Because, Mallory's drinking a lot, whereas Xavier was drinking a lot, trying to cope with the situation because he couldn't handle it. And then so Bond is like, my God, you're thirsty. my God, you're thirsty. And just like in Dark Phoenix, Nicholas Hall, he was more dramatic. He like slapped the glass out of his hand and slapped the bottle and the glass broke. But it's kind of like that, where there's this emotional weight and there's this conversation back and forth, and just the conversation is intense because Mallory's behind it, but he's hiding something and he's drinking, and they're emphasizing that. And then Bond points it out, and it ticks Mallory off. And then Bond makes these quips at Mallory where he's like, is this desk gotten bigger, or you just gotten smaller or something? It's like, I even heard someone in the theater laugh like, huh, So it's great audience reaction. And it's a great scene, It's a great scene of dialogues. It's fantastic. Mwah. And so then, Bond and Mallory end up disagreeing. So then Bond stands up and he's like, it's definitely desk. Like, desk has gotten, whatever. Or it's definitely something. Like, he throws he throws another quip at Mallory, insulting him. And then Bond leaves the room. And this moment, what Bond's about to do, kind of reminded me of how Sean Connery would come in to Moneypenny's reception area and then throw his hat on the hanger. And it would perfectly land on there. Well, this is kind of like what Sean Connery did, whereas Bond takes the visitor's pass off of his suit and he just tosses it into the trash perfectly. Doesn't even miss it, because he's Bond and he's smooth. In real life, he didn't even look at it. He just did it, snatched, throws it in the trash. And it's perfect. It's perfectly smooth. It's a smooth move by Mr. Bond, because he's a smooth man. But, so that happens. And then Mallory really needs to go after the new 007 for insubordinance, because she sabotaged her own mission. Even Mallory is like, stay out of it, Bond. But then she didn't have to go to Bond's house to tell him that. She could have just been like, all right, Bond said no. I don't have to approach him. I can just go do my thing. He's out of it. He said no to Field. Bond didn't even want to do the damn mission till she came in. But but that's just her character. She's like very cocky, and she motivated Bond. I don't have to like her, but I guess that's a part of the story. If she hadn't intervened and made him angry, and, I'm 007, he wouldn't have fucking done the mission. But it's like, I don't like her character, because it's like, bro, like, what's wrong with Mallory, bro? Like, you need to I would have been like, bro, why did you even go to Bond? Why did you give him your phone? You sabotaged the mission. It's not Bond's fault, it's your fault. Like, every time he's mad at Bond about something, like, why did you go to New Mexico? You had no authority to go there. And he's not even yelling at her like, hey, why did you go to Bond and tell him that? Like, why did you do that? Why did you give him your phone? Like, it's just off a little bit here for me. But, so, Bond, at this point in the movie, I think the movie is just like, it just kind of falls apart after this. Because then it's like, what happens? Let me see. So Bond, what does Bond do after that? He talks to Mallory, and then he's trying to get to Blofeld, but he can't. So then Moneypenny comes in, and Moneypenny and Bond go to Q, and we see Q, and then I know a lot of people point out that Q is bisexual in this movie, because he's clearly prepping himself, or prepping everything in his home for a date. And he's like, he'll be here in 20 minutes. So they just like slightly threw that in there. And no one brought it up. Bond didn't say anything. It's like, okay, we never knew this, but it's like cool. And Bond is drinking wine. Moneypenny's drinking wine. Why did I bring that up? Okay, I have to talk about it. Because it's like, with the way the culture is going in the United States, I guess. I don't really know, but everyone's talking about it, and it's like there's more culturally appropriate movies now, and a lot of people are complaining about this whole like Me Too thing and the feminism thing affecting this movie, and the women trying to one up Bond, like Bond can't even just sleep around with a woman anymore, Bond can't be a man and all this stuff. But when I saw Bond earlier in the movie, and he just grabbed Madeline, like, how did they know I was here? He was being manly. He was being a man, and he threw her down, and it was, and I didn't see anything wrong with that, because like I think Bond had every right to be pissed. I felt his emotion, because it's like, bro, they seriously just tried to kill you. they tried to blow you up, and then they're shooting at you, and it's like, holy shit, you working with them, you set me up, you know. So I understood that. So I thought his anger and him manhandling Madeline and throwing her and yelling at her was justified. So he's still Bond, you know. And just because he's not sleeping with women doesn't mean anything. And I felt, from my perspective of watching him in this movie, he even says, I stopped trusting pretty faces a long time ago. So it seems like he's just happy living his tranquil lifestyle by himself. Like, when I thought he was like suspicious of the new 007, but he's like, I didn't think that would be the first thing you take off. I was thinking like, well, I think he was thinking like, okay, yeah, I'll sleep with her, but he's still keeping an eye on her, you know. He's not gonna turn it down. But it's like, I understand why he's not. And with Armide Almost, I mean, he didn't know what was gonna happen. He didn't know what she was doing. But she's like, no, no, no. So that was her choice. She's like, I'm not. That's not what we're here for. You know, focused on the mission. So with Bond not sleeping with anybody, classic Bond, that's fine with me. I understand because we're focused on the story here. Him just randomly sleeping with someone would be just kind of like off track. And so with the whole Q thing being bi, or not bi, but with Q being gay, because he's like, he'll be here. That doesn't bother me. It doesn't matter. It doesn't affect the movie. It doesn't affect the story. And the only reason I bring it up is because I was reading comments online, and I guess that affected my better judgment. But it's like, I don't think anything of it. When I heard the line, I was just kind of like, oh, okay. Moving on. And the movie just kind of mentions that. Did the movie need to bring that up? It doesn't matter. It doesn't affect the story. Doesn't change the character of Q. He's still Q. But then it's like, would they have brought this stuff up if we weren't in the climate? Would the writers and producers or whoever had brought this up, put that line in there, if we weren't in the cultural climate we're in now? I don't know. Like back then, like back in when, what is it, 1960s, they wouldn't put that line in there. But that's what this is. It's just like, in Hollywood, it's just a cultural thing. You're changing with the times. Times change. Like they say, the times, they are a-changing. I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. I'm just trying to make sense of it all myself. But that's my perspective of it, is that the reason the line is in there is the cultural climate we're in now. Back then they wouldn't have done it, but it's like, hey, why not? This is the culture now. This is what's happening. This is what everyone's talking about. Sometimes you don't have to bring it up because it's like a sensitive subject for some people, but it's just like, whatever. I don't care. He brought up the line, moving on. So, Moneypenny, Bond, they're all there, and they're drinking wine, and then Q's trying to figure out the whole thing of like, okay, this DNA, who is this? What is this Hercules project? Who is it targeting? What does it do? And all this kind of stuff. And it's basically, I don't really know. I'm not sciencey or anything like that, or whatever the hell they were talking about, this techie stuff. But this bioweapon is something where if it gets onto your skin, it gets in your system, it's permanently on you, and whoever comes into contact with you, they die as well. But for Bond, he's immune to it for some reason. I don't know why. Someone doesn't want him dead. And then, after we learn all this information, we see Madeline Swan. She's back. And we see Safin for the first time without the mask, just Rami Malek. And this is a very odd scene, because then it's like she comes into her office and they just look at him as like, okay, he's another patient. So they clearly, I'm like, okay, they don't know each other. Okay. And then he's talking to her, and I don't know what they're going for here, but it seems like they're trying to go for some like Hannibal Lecter thing with him or something, because he's a little off, And then so he's talking, and then he's like talking about the past, and he gives her this box with the mask in it, and she starts crying. And then he's like, you're going to do a favor for me. And she's like, I refuse. And he's like, I'll kill the person closest to you. And she's like, you've already taken everything from me. And he's like, we both know that this is not true. And then it cuts to Bond, so that's a nice transition. But then I'm like thinking, okay, so you're telling me this whole thing you've been building, this whole little mystery about what happened between Saf and what happened between Safin and Madeline from the opening scene. Like, what happened? Like, he saved her, but then what happened afterwards? What you're telling me is after he pulled her out of the ice, he just said goodbye and walked away, and they parted ways. And he left her alone for her whole life, up until this very moment where he's going to get a biological weapon. And he needs her to kill Blofeld. I'm in your office now after all these years, and I need a favor from you. Basically, he said, my life is in your hands. You owe me. Which, me personally, I feel like that is the dumbest conclusion to that whole mystery they built. And I know, yeah, the obvious thing would have been, oh yeah, she's really working with Spectre. Like, I think, like, personally, I do think it would have been cool. Like, I can have like little speculation fandom in my head for a second here. It would have been cool if they like set up that mystery. He pulls her out of the ice, and it could be like some Black Widow situation where like they trained her as an assassin, because it's like Inspector, you know, she like, when Bond's trying to explain to her like how a gun works, she already knows. She's like, I've been trained, my father trained me, all this stuff. So she's been living this lifestyle for a long time. And then she got captured by Safin. I would have been like, alright, Safin already lost his whole family. His family got wiped out. So then he saves this little girl and adopts her and keeps her. And like, it kind of becomes maybe like a Thanos Gamora situation. He trains her, but then she becomes defective. And then, you know, maybe like a Bruce Wayne, Ra's al Ghul situation. You know, she like turns his back on him and like leaves him for dead and all this kind of stuff. And then like their past is forgotten. Like, I just really wish there had been something deeper here. That's all I think. Like, what my idea is probably trash, but I just wish there was something deeper here. That's all I'm saying. Besides, hey, I saved your life, you owe me one. That just seems kind of lame to me. I really wish there was a deeper layer of story with this. Because that intrigue, that mystery at the beginning when he saved her, they had me hooked. But then they didn't nail they didn't strike it. They didn't strike the landing. They didn't fucking... The conclusion to that was just... I really feel like the payoff to that was dull. Like, that was so disappointing. It didn't go anywhere. Because then it's like, okay, she's like, okay, you gotta go kill Blofeld. And then Bond, he gets a meeting with Blofeld after talking to Mallory, and then Bond and Mallory are good again. And it's a really cool sequence where Bond, he's talking to Tanner, and he's like, don't lose control. And he's like, I'm not going to lose control. And you see it in the trailer. And so we see Madeline. Bond approaches her, and she's cold-blooded. Like, Bond puts out his hand to shake it, and then the director, Cary Fukunaga, puts the emphasis on that because he gets the wide shot, and his hand is out, and she's not touching him. And there's multiple things, like multiple layers. Is great because you're seeing it from her perspective, where it's like, bro, I can't touch you because I got this poison on me. Where Bond is like, oh, you don't want to shake my hand, you're that bitter towards me now. You know, so there's lots of great stuff happening here. Really great. I love it. And so they go into the room where Blofeld is, and there's really cool music kicking in with this cool shot of Blofeld coming in, but then it makes me think like, bro, every time someone goes to see Blofeld, they have to stand there that long just to have him come in with this dramatic entrance. Like, okay, but it's cool. So then he comes in, and then Madeline starts shaking, and then Bond mentions that, and then he grabs her, and he touches the poison. And I think the director really focused on his hand. Because now Daniel Craig's doing a lot of hand movement, to the point where I'm like, Bond doesn't behave like that. Like, Bond isn't constantly... I've never seen Bond move his hands around like this, but they really put like an emphasis on like watch Bond's hands now. Watch where his hands go. And I'm watching because Daniel Craig's doing a lot with his hands here in this scene. So then he's like talking to Blofeld and he's moving his hands around. And then Blofeld, Christoph Waltz, great actor, he's saying his lines. He's like, Madeline was never involved, you know? So then this kind of clears up the whole explosion with Vesper's grave and why Bond didn't die. Because then Blofeld comes out and he's like, you know, I just wanted to wreck your life and make you lonely and make you believe that Madeline was involved when really she just sent you there out of the kindness of her heart and all this stuff. So then I'm thinking, you're toying with Bond this whole time. You really didn't want to kill him. So you're telling me you set up these explosives at the tomb. It blew up, but you didn't want to kill him. So that's why he didn't die. You just said it just enough to, like, hurt him a little bit. Okay. But then your your guys are getting wasted. Like it's just a movie, man. Let it go. But I don't want to think that. I want to be immersed into the movie. I don't want to just chalk it up to, oh, it's a movie, let it go. I want to be like, the point of a movie, yes, it's escapism. The point of a movie, I feel, is to immerse yourself in it so much that you're not thinking about anything else. You're so lost in this experience. But with this movie, there's so many things happening to the point where I'm like, bro, I just got to let it go. It's a movie. But then I hate doing that because then it just sucks me out of it to the point where I'm like, when is this movie going to be over? Because this movie's long. Like at the beginning it's great and then it just starts to drag as it goes along. And so it's like, Bond's talking to Blofeld. He's like, Madeline's not involved. Then he starts choking him. He's like, die, brother, die. And it just feels odd. He's choking him. And then you know he's going to die because he's got the poison on his hand. So then it kind of, whatever. He's got the poison on his hand. Okay, I'm just going to say it. It makes me feel like it was a waste of just trying to focus on Daniel Craig's hand the whole time. Even though it did suck me in. And that's what's worth it. It sucked me in. It got me. But then the payoff to that was, oh, he's just going to choke him. And it's like, but then I'm thinking, well, Bond's got this poison on his hand. So basically, he can't come into contact with anybody. Because even Q says, once the Hercules is on your hand, once it's on you, it's permanently on you. And then that the people at the funeral, anyone that came into contact with them, they died. So with Bond, I'm thinking, well, damn, man, you better be wearing gloves. And he's like, not wearing any gloves. He goes to Madeline's place afterward, gun in his hand, no gloves. And then there's a kid there, and I'm like, you can't touch her, bro, because it's poison. So I'm confused. I don't know how the Hercules works. I don't know what the fuck going on here. It's weird, whatever. And so then, like, we meet this girl, but Madeline's like, it's not your daughter. For some reason, even though later they reveal it's his kid. I don't know what the hell's happening. But it's, like, all over the place. But so the daughter's here. And then there's a nice little cute moment where Bond is, like, cutting the edges off of the apple. And he gives it to the girl. And he's like, how is it? And she's like, it's good. You know, it's cute. And then Madeline and Bond are talking. And then there's this exposition dump where Madeline comes in and explains away where Safin is. She's like, oh, this island. It's like, how the fuck do you know that? Oh my god. It's like, how the fuck do you know that? Well, this little island here. His family died. This little quick story. This island. You know, it's like, what the fuck? How'd you get this information? You two didn't even know who the fuck he was when you went into his office. I mean, when she went into her office, she didn't even know who the hell he was. Or at least she acted like she didn't know who the hell he was. Maybe she was just playing it off. But that's bullshit, because then he pulled out the fucking mask, and she starts crying and shit. I don't understand what's happening here. This makes no sense. They just throw this shit in here, just like, oh, this island, get this over with. So it's like, okay. Bond calls Q, give you my location in a few hours, and Madeline and Bond have sex, and it's great. Bond pours out his heart to Madeline, and it's fantastic. You know, Daniel Craig's fantastic actor, acting is superb. He's like, I've loved you 5 minutes of my life. Everything I've done that led me to you has been worth it. I love you. And I feel that shit is great. So then, you know, they make love, and then the baby wakes up, or the kid wakes up, and that's when the apple thing happens. And then they leave the house, and then they're being chased down. There's this car chase scene, and I'm indifferent about the car chase. Like, visually, it's impressive. Visuals are great. The action feels real. Like, you hear, like, when the car goes up, you hear the vroom, and then the sound effects are great. The crashes look real. You see the geography and the scope of the whole thing. It's great. But then it's like, it just feels odd. Like when Daniel Craig's in the car and he's driving, and then he rams into the villain's car, and then their car crashes. I don't know. I just don't feel any. I don't know. I just don't feel any real depth to it. I don't know. It's just. I don't know. It just feels a little off. But he's driving, and it's cool. And then they pull into this forest, and it's visually cool with the smog and the smoke. And then he's grabbing the kid and take the kid into this little hole or this cave. And he's like, if anyone comes in here, you shoot them. And then Bond goes out and starts playing Home Alone in the jungle. It's just kind of, this feels a little odd, because then it's like he sets this trap, and this guy in the motorcycle comes in, and then Bond is like setting more traps, and then the fucking smiley guy comes in, and he starts shooting, and then Bond is like, people can't shoot, like, it's like stormtroopers. Their aim is terrible, and then the dude ends up going over this branch, or not a branch, he goes over this tree stump, or this whole tree that's on the ground, and then the car flips, and then since the windshield was already shot through, he flies through the windshield, he's laying on the ground, and then Bond, in the moment to remember Felix, he's like, I had a brother, his name was Felix, and then Bond drops the car on him, dude dies, and I felt that pain. But then Madeline, Safin captures Madeline, and then they go to the island, and then new 007 shows up, and then they go to this plane, and visually it's cool, and then they get into the plane, and then Q shows Bond this new watch, and then he's like, it's an EMP, and then they get into the plane that we saw into the trailer, the little thing that also turns into a submarine. Is pretty cool, and they get in there, and he's like, you know how to fly this? She's like, nope, and they come out, and then they go in the water, and then they go to Safin's island, and then Safin is like being extra creepy with the little girl and shit. It goes so far as to like, bro, like, I'm surprised they had a little girl in the scene. I mean, it's not like anything terrible or anything, but it's like, bro, like, Rami Malek is a fantastic actor. Like, he's very menacing. It's like, I know a lot of people were speculating that Rami Malek's character would play Dr. No. And I was pretty sure he was going to. I thought they were going to do another, like, Blofeld thing, reveal, oh, it's Dr. No. Because he had the same robes. His layout of his, like, facility, the interior wasn't the same, but, like, just this dark feeling, surrounding it. It was just kind of the same. And then he even gets his arm broken at the end. I'm thinking, oh, he broke his arm. He's going to get the claw thing, Maybe they were going for that and they scrapped it. I don't know, because it kind of seems like they were really leaning on like a Dr. No vibe here with Safin here. But yeah, Rami Malek, great performance. Like, he's really menacing here, and he's got the little girl. It's like I'm panicking. Like, what is he gonna do to the girl? So it's really good stuff here. And he's like, I got plants that do all sorts of things. And then Madeline takes Madeline away, and then Bond and new 007. Or before they go on the mission, she's like, I want to reinstate Bond as new 007, or reinstate him as 007, which was a nice little moment there, showing that Naomi, I think her character's name is, where she's like, she was super fucking cocky earlier. Now she's like, I respect you, Bond. Okay, there we go. Because I really, like, thinking about all that, I'm like, man, I don't like her character at all. But by the end, she's like, okay, he's 007 again. And they go on the island, and they meet the scientist guy. He's like, how did you guys get in here? And then they plant these bombs, and then Safin's like, Bond, come and meet me. Then Bond goes to meet Safin. Bond is surrounded, and he surrenders. And Bond and Safin have a conversation. And then this Rami Malek, he's a great actor, but this villain really doesn't make any sense, because he's just going off on this spout about, oh, you're God, and I'll be their God, sneaking under the skin. people want to be controlled, whatever. I don't know. I don't understand his intentions. Like, number one, who was keeping Bond alive? Because like people are like, are you trying to kill Bond? Are you trying to keep Bond alive? Why isn't he getting hurt or anything? It's a movie. Let it go. But I don't like that excuse. But whatever. Um, and then it's like, what is Safin's deal? What is his plan? So he just wants world domination? But then it doesn't seem like he wants to take over the world. He doesn't even mention that. He's just like, I want to feed people the poison. And that's it. So to me, it just feels like you chalk it up to, this movie needs a villain. We have an Academy Award-winning actor here. Who, when this movie would have came out, Rami Malek just came off his Academy Award. I don't know if he did this right after Bohemian Rhapsody, but from my point of view, it seems like that's the case. Like, he's fresh off his Academy Award. This is a Bond movie, which Bond movies, that's like a high caliber right there. This is Bond, the 25th Bond movie. You know, it's been around for a long time. You know, and kudos, no disrespect or anything like that, because it's like, hey, make your money, man, and it's a Bond movie. But the script, to me, feels so flat. For this character, it feels so flat. It feels flat. Because there's just no motivation. I don't feel any motivation. And then it's like they had to explain away his history in an exposition dumping scene where Madeline has all the answers. Madeline has all the answers. I know where the island is, even though I didn't know who the hell he was when he was in my office. It's like the writers, they just wrote themselves into a corner. It's like, God dang it, how can we fucking get... Like, I didn't feel the emotional weight of Safin's family being killed, because all they do is explain it to you. Then his whole entire goal for whatever the fuck he's trying to do is like, doesn't make any... What is his deal? Like, what? And then you show the plants, which I thought the plants were cool, but they don't do anything with that shit. So I'm just confused. I'm like, he's just here to serve a purpose for the script. He's here to play the villain, give Bond an obstacle, give someone for Bond to go up against, and that's all I can draw this up to. This is just the movie, and this is the plot thing. It's there's no layers to this character. He has nothing going for him. Like, we know of his history, but it's told to us in just like this, I think, a cheap, lazy way. It's just like, he doesn't even really... I mean, he expresses himself, like in the scene where he meets Madeline in his office. Is great. He expresses, you know, how he feels. And I felt that, but I wanted more. I wanted to be... There just should have been more layers to his character, I feel. But yeah, he and Bond have their confrontation. And this is how Bond gets out of every situation. It's like he's on his knees begging, like, I'm sorry. And then he pulls out his gun. And then quick draw, shoot everybody. He did that in Skyfall. It's like he's surrounded. And how does he get out of this situation? Quick draw. He's Bond. And it's great. And he gets out of it. And Safin disappears under the floor. And he just lets the girl go anyway. And then Madeline gets out of the situation she's in. It's a very creepy scene because the guy with the messed up eye, or the robotic guy, is like, drink the tea. And I'm even curious what the tea is. Like, I wouldn't drink that shit. Like, I felt Madeline, like, in her paranoia. I'm like, I wouldn't drink that shit either. Fuck that. So she doesn't drink it. I'm like, Madeline, don't drink it. So then she tosses the drink in the guy's face. And then she runs away. And then my nose is getting stuffy. So she runs away. And... you know, she knows how to handle herself, and then Bond, you know, is a shootout and all this stuff, and then Bond and Madeline and the little girl end up meeting each other with Naomi, and well, before Naomi catches up with Bond, there's this weird moment where the scientist looks at Naomi and he's like, I can exterminate your whole race or some shit like that. And then me being black in the theater sitting there, I'm just kind of like, huh. Why did that line need to be in there? Guess to give her motivation to kill him. Because then she's like, you know what time it is? And he's like, what? And then she's like, It's time to die. And she kicks him. And it's kind of corny. I don't think they really needed that there. But I guess they needed motivation for her to kill him. Because she can't just straight up kill him, I guess. Because it's like, you can't do that. But you've been wasting people this whole time. So I don't know. But they kill him. And he's dead. Because he falls in some acid. And it's awkward. It's very odd. But so moving on. But then why do I feel odd about that being black? Well, I don't know, because it didn't need to be brought up, I guess. But like, so moving on. We see Naomi and Madeline and the little girl, and they all escape. And then Bond's like, "Oh yeah, I gotta end this. I gotta finish this for us." And then he goes on his shooting video game quest. It's beautifully shot. Some of it, I think there's a shot on the stairwell that feels like it's all in one take, and it feels like a John Wick movie, because you see who Bond is pointing at, and then the accuracy, and then how he's moving, and then you see the people he's shooting at in the background, and then Bond's in the foreground, and he's shooting, and you can see everything very clearly. It's very fantastically shot. But there's just no depth to it. There's no layers to it. It's just like, if I can say the style over substance thing, because but it's an action movie and it's Bond. What do you expect? But it's like, when I think about it, like, think about Mission Impossible, and I'm sorry to compare the two, but Mission Impossible, their action scenes are so elaborate to where there's multiple stuff happening. There's the action scene, which is intense, but then it's like when Bond does when Ethan Hunt does the Halo jump, it's like, okay, there's multiple things happening here. They have to hit the target right on point. Walker's unconscious. They have a storm to deal with, so now Ethan has to like grab Walker in the nick of time and then put the oxygen on him, and then release his parachute and release Walker's parachute before they mess up their landing and everything. So it's stuff like that. Those kinds of action scenes are elaborate, and I think that's what makes those action scenes exciting, because they kind of go beyond action sequences. There's more layers and elements involved in those action sequences. Whereas with this, in No Time to Die, he's just running and shooting, and I don't care. I'm not even really excited about it. I'm like kind of bored. I'm like, when is this over, bro? Like, this is dull now. Like, he's just running and shooting, and it's trying to be like John Wick. And I'm like, at least in John Wick, there's some other elements in John Wick besides the running and shooting. There's just like some hardcore rawness with John Wick, and then it feels like Bond's trying to just mimic that here. So it's like, it's fine, he's running, he's shooting. I'm glad Daniel Craig, he broke his ankle or his leg within a few weeks of shooting. So kudos to Daniel Craig for doing it one last time. I respect him as Bond. He did a fantastic job. Cary Fukunaga did a great job directing this thing. I feel like a lot of effort was put into this, because the action scene, especially on the stairwell, is beautifully shot, perfectly executed. I can see everything that's happening, but I don't feel anything. I don't even feel excited. I'm just like, kind of like, okay, it looks cool. He's running and gunning, but then he's not getting hurt at the same time, so then I don't feel any real layers to it. So then, the one-eyed guy Cyclops comes in, and they have their fight on the stairwell. And it's kind of reminiscent of the fight in Casino Royale on the stairwell with the guy with the machete, because then they're like, Bond throws the guy off of the stairs, and they leap off of it, and then they hit the ground. Bond's choking him. Bond uses his watch and blows that guy's brain up with the eye, and then he makes a nice quip. I thought it was really clever, where he tells Q, like, oh, I showed the guy your watch. It really blew his mind. I thought that was really great. So then Bond, he has to open these silo doors to blow up the whole facility. So he opens the doors. As soon as he opens the doors, he's like, send the missiles. And they, I think they start sending them. And then Bond, he's running, and then the music's playing, and then the music stops. And then Bond stops running. And then Bond looks, and he sees a teddy bear on the ground. And he grabs it for the little girl. But then the silo doors start closing again, and then Bond's like, no, and then he's running. And this is the first time Bond actually gets injured in this movie. He gets shot, and he falls, and I'm like, okay, finally. Then Safin comes in, and then he starts talking, and then Bond just... This is weird, too, because then Bond just stands up. Safin shoots at Bond point blank, but he still charges him. I'm like, okay, whatever. So then Bond tackles Safin, and then, like I say, breaks Safin's arm, where I'm like, oh, this is kind of a Dr. No thing happening here. Does he turn into Dr. No? He broke his arm. But then, Safin earlier had, like, this red vial that he used as an insurance policy in case this situation happened between he and Bond. He cracks it over Bond's scalp, and now Bond is infected with this poison that's worse than Hercules that's in his system. He's poisoned. He can't kiss his love, Madeline. He can't do anything. Can't come into contact with anyone. He'll instantly kill them. So now Bond is screwed. He blows Safin away, shooting him point blank in a cool fucking shot where it's like, damn, I thought, it feels like he actually shot him the way they shot that with the sound effects and everything. So then Bond, he's limping and there's blood coming out and it's very sad, and you're like, holy shit, what's happening? Then he's like talking to Mallory and he's talking to Madeline. He's like, I'm not gonna make it. And then he goes out, opens the silo doors again, and he's climbing this ladder, and then he goes and he stands in this beautiful scenery, and you're like, holy shit, they're about to kill Bond. And sure enough, they kill Bond. The missiles come in, and you see Daniel Craig get blown up. He gets blown up. You see him die. There's no coming back for him. But here's where I think is what they ruined it, bro. Here's what I think they could have done. I guarantee you that, I don't guarantee you, but I'm pretty sure that this pitch that I'm about to give you, Daniel Craig would have came back for one more Bond film. Because Daniel Craig is done his Bond. His Bond is dead. But there will be another Bond film. Because I think I've been seeing shit online where people have been getting their panties all in a bunch being like, what's next for the Bond franchise? They just killed Bond. And it's like, bro, they killed Daniel Craig's Bond. It's kind of like that situation in The Dark Knight Rises, where it's like, I truly believe they should have killed Batman. They should have killed him. He should have died. It would have been a definitive conclusion for Christian Bale's Batman. But I believe there could be one reason why they didn't pull the trigger on that, because they're like, well, it's Batman, and you can't kill Batman. You can't do that. It's just Batman. But it's like, this is Christian Bale's version. You kill him, and you have Ben Affleck, and it's fine. There's no connection. So I think they dropped the ball with The Dark Knight Rises. But then it's like also what they could have been like, well, we don't want a somber ending. We want like a celebration. And it's like, I understand, but it just felt cheap. You should have killed Bruce Wayne. But with this, no, they pulled the trigger. And it's like, you stay till the very end of the credits. Like, I'm the kind of guy, I love movies so much, and I'm in the theater, I stay until the very last frame, until the credits are over and the lights turn back on. And so I stayed for Bond, and at the very end, after all the credits, big, bold, white letters, it says, James Bond will return. Big, bold letters at the very end. And I wanted to capture it on my phone, but I saw it too late, and it passes by really quickly. So people who are speculating what's going to happen to Bond, it's like, I highly believe that, A, they're going to bring Bond back. It's just going to be a new actor like as usual. But if they do some sort of like thing that's out there, like people keep talking about, oh, don't make a female Bond. Don't make a black Bond. And I completely agree with that. Don't make a female Bond, because this is the way Bond's been for years. This is how Bond is in the novel. He's a man. Leave it alone. He's not black. Leave it alone. Don't create... Don't do that. Don't create something just because that's the way the culture is or whatever. Don't be pressured into that. If they're going to make a black James Bond, have that be their own thing. We have Shaft. I have Shaft. That's like a black Bond to me. Or like Action Jackson. Or like Key Nairi Williams in Low Down Dirty Shame. That's Black Bond right there. You know what I'm saying? So we already have that. Create your own Black Bond. Don't try and take James Bond. That's own thing. That's like trying to turn Candyman into a white person, and it doesn't make any sense. That's just the way things are for some characters. Like some characters are just like tied into that. But like some characters can be racially switched, like Two-Face. It doesn't matter if Two-Face is white, even though in the comics, yeah, the character is white, whatever. But like in the movie, he was played by Billy D. Williams, and he's black, and no one cared. I didn't hear anyone complain about that. Maybe they did. I don't know. I wasn't alive back then. But like stuff like that, like something minor like that, like Two-Face, Harvey Dent, doesn't matter if he's black or white. But Candyman, it matters because it's part of his history, you know. Whereas with James Bond, that's how he was written as a character. Yes, you can have a female Bond, but there already is. There's been like just plenty of female Bond characters out there. There's a movie Charlize Theron was in, that Atomic Blonde. That's a female Bond right there. Or the movie with Gina Carano, Haywire. That's a female Bond movie right there. So we've already had these things, but I feel like Bond is such a huge, big franchise. It's such a juggernaut that people just get their panties all in a bunch. We're like, don't change this, don't change that. And it's like, bro, I agree, we don't need to change it. Because we've already had that. Create your own thing. Like, even with Angelina Jolie, she had her Salt movie. She even said, I remember when Salt came out, Angelina Jolie said in the interview, she's like, you know, they wanted her to be in a movie to play a Bond girl. But she was like, why would I want to be a Bond girl when I can be Bond myself? So she took the initiative herself and was like, bro, let's just do Salt. And I think Salt was supposed to be about a guy, but then they changed it and they put her in there and it's like, it's an original character. So just create an original character like Naomi. Her being 007 is just a code name. She's not James Bond. 007, that's a code name. Cool, that's great. So I feel like, yeah, with Bond, he'll be back. We'll have a new actor playing Bond. They even say it at the very end of the credits. James Bond will return. This is Daniel Craig's story, complete conclusion. But, like I was going to say, they dropped the ball with this. They really, I believe Daniel Craig would have came back if they would have did this. Like I said, at the beginning of this movie, when Bond gets blown up, or when, you know, he's in front of Vesper's grave and the explosion happens, if they already knew that Daniel Craig was going to die at the end of this movie, and I'm pretty sure they already knew. I'm pretty sure that was the agreement from the get-go before the script was even probably written. I believe that the only reason Daniel Craig did this is because he knew his character was going to die. I think he did it for the money, for one, you know, get you to pay your bills. But then also he did it because it's like, whoa, you're killing my character? Okay, yeah, let's do it. As long as I know I'm not coming back. Because we've already heard, you know, how he doesn't want to do this anymore. And so, if they knew he was going to die from the get-go, I would have been like, let's go all in, bro. Let's fucking wreck Daniel Craig's Bond up to the point, by the end of the movie, he looks like a villain. Like, that explosion happens, bro, I would have like been like, okay, Daniel Craig, you're going to wear a lot of prosthetics throughout this whole film. And it'll be worth it, trust me. Because then I would like be like, okay, we're going to like cut off a little piece of your hair and put some burn marks in there. You'll be looking like Two-Face kind of. Not too deformed or anything, but like, bro, like something really bad happened to you. Like the side of your face will be burnt. A piece of your earlobe would be missing. And then we'll like put some white contacts in your left eye to make it look like, or put a red contact in your eye, make it look like, bro, you were in an explosion. And then more and more as the movie progresses, Bond will look more and more jacked up. So then by the end of the movie, he looks like a full-blown villain. Like, he looks like Two-Face. Like, bro, he's been through some shit. He's been through some battles. So then that would have added more layers to it. Where it's like, bro, I care for Bond's safety. Like, damn, man, he's getting wrecked in this movie. You know? Like how they did in Casino Royale, where they put all that makeup on the scratches on his face. Where it's like, yeah, he's been in some fights. But if they knew he was going to die, they should have totally jacked him up in this movie. Like, man, he looks like a villain. So then by the end of this movie, right, it would have been great. By the end of this movie, instead of killing Bond, right, you make it look like you killed him. So you can do the whole fake out thing, but don't make it a happy ending though. Make it like they killed him, they believe he's dead, but he's not dead. Like have some little plug at the end, like, oh yeah, he's not dead though, but everyone thinks he's dead. So then, when you announce who your new Bond is, he comes in, and then you're like, okay, this is the new Bond, and then you promote the new movie, and then when the new movie comes out, you reveal that the villain in the new James Bond movie with the new Bond actor, the new villain is Daniel Craig's Bond. So then Bond is basically like what's that character's name in Skyfall? He's kind of like him, where it's like now he's out for a grudge. It kind of sounds stupid, but I think it could be cool because I heard they were already like thinking about, not even thinking about it, but it was kind of up in the air where it's like, oh, we're gonna bring Pierce Brosnan in as a villain in a Bond film, and that's kind of weird, but that would have been a perfect transition because then we just got a whole villain origin story. We got a whole, like, we see Casino Royale, Quantum of Solace, Skyfall, Spectre, and No Time to Die is his conclusion. Because then by the end of No Time to Die, he looks so jacked up where it's like, damn, man, he could be a villain. And then at the end of No Time to Die, you know, that's the conclusion of his story. Perfectly wrapped up in a bow if he didn't want to come back. But then, hey, if he came back, I'm telling you, he'd probably do it because then it would be something even better. It'd be something juicier that he can put his, you know, his hands into. Because I noticed Daniel Craig, he likes to play those little quirky characters, like, you know, in Knives Out, he's got this accent. And Logan Lucky, you know, he's putting on another accent. He likes playing these little like weird characters. So I can see him coming back in a Bond movie as his Bond, but being a villain this time and being like, I'm back for revenge. I'm back on Mallory. Mallory, this is what you did to my face. That would have been great, bro. I think that would have been fantastic. That's what I would have done. If I was a producer, I would have been like, look, Craig, hear me out. Listen, you can come back for one more Bond film, but you'll be a villain. So we're going to jack you up in this movie so that when you come back, you're going to be like so messed up. And it makes sense and we know why you're here. Because we've already seen your journey to this point. That would have been fantastic. I would have done that. Cause seeing Daniel Craig get jacked up in here, it's like, I feel in Casino Royale, it looked even better. The action was more spectacular in there. Cause like, it's just like the action is beautifully shot in here. And it's fantastic to look at, and the music is great, and the visuals are fantastic, and the way the scenery is, and the scope of it is fantastic. But as far as like an emotional weight of it, it's just like the opening action scene is great, because there is some emotional weight to there, because Bond's being chased, and you can't trust Madeline, you know, and I feel the intensity of that. There's a bit of paranoia going on there. But then after that, it's the action, you know, it doesn't drag right after that. Like the other action scene I enjoy is the Arma de Amos scene. I think that's my favorite action. The second favorite, like my first favorite action scene would be the car chase, along with like, you know, how it starts with the tombstone blowing up and then the car chase. I think that's my favorite because it's got all these different elements involved. Then you have the Arma de Amos scene because it's just a fun scene, you know, action packed, very exciting. Armadale almost really livens everything up to the point where I'm like, damn, I wish she was in the movie more. And then I'd say my other favorite is the one where the Splinter Cell people go to the facility and they steal the Hercules project. That was a cool action sequence, especially with the elevator shaft thing. What else? Damn, after that, the action scenes to me just get pretty dull. Like, the forest scene is pretty cool because it looks cool, but I'm just like, you know, dropping the car on the guy, I mean, and then the ending, like I said, it's like John Wick, but it's like, there's just kind of no excitement in it for me. You know, and then Bond dying, I did tear up with that. Like, when Bond got killed at the end, I did die. I mean, I didn't die. When Bond died at the end of that movie, when Bond died at the end of No Time to Die, I did tear up. I didn't cry fully, but, you know, my eyes did water up. So I felt that. I felt that moment. It was great. But yeah, technical achievements all across the board. Acting performances great all across the board. The story to me, it hooked me in at first, had me a little bit in the middle, and lost me at the end. To where as a whole, I liked it. I liked the movie. I liked it. I like No Time to Die. I like it. I like it as a Bond film. Where would I rank it? I would say first from greatest to least, it would go Casino Royale, Skyfall, No Time to Die, Spectre, and then Quantum of Solace. That'd be my Daniel Craig Bond ranking system right there. Yeah, I like the movie. It's fine. I like it. If you're a Bond fan, I think you will enjoy it. I had fun with it. Like I said, there's lots of scenes that made me think about this, made me think about that, made me feel this way, made me feel that way. Lots of adrenaline pumping action scenes, but yeah, by the end I was just kind of like burnt out on it. Like, okay, it's all over the place. But they dropped the ball though, man. They missed the opportunity. They could have been like, hey man, we'll jack you up so bad you'll look like Two-Face by the end of this movie, so that in the next Bond movie with the new Bond, you come back as the villain, based like 006 in GoldenEye, but we've seen your origin story. So when Bond comes back as a villain, it's like, oh, shit's about to get real. This is a real villain right here. This is Daniel Craig's Bond. Now this new Bond's going toe to toe with this guy. This isn't just like some wits. This is like they're going to get in a physical altercation. I think Daniel Craig would have came back for that, because that would have been something he can sink his teeth into. I think because it's going to be something different. I think he would have come back for that, because I would have pitched him that idea. Like, that would have been great. But other than that, yeah, I like this movie. It's a perfect conclusion to Daniel Craig's Bond. I'm still a Bond fan. I'm excited for the next Bond. Who's going to be the actor for that? If you made it to the end of this, thank you, because yeah, I'm not editing this thing. I'm just going to release it the way it is. But yeah, that's my thoughts about No Time to Die. I liked it. Yeah, that's all I have to say. I appreciate you very much if you made it all the way to the end of this. Thank you.